The special session of the Independent School District 535 School Board is called to order at 6:00 p.m. on Tuesday, December 12th, 2023, in room 137 of the Edison Building. The board acknowledges this site and all RPS sites are situated on the ancestral land of the Dakota people, and we honor the Dakota nations and the sacred land of all indigenous peoples. This meeting is being live streamed, and any interested members of the public are welcome and encouraged to view it remotely at youtube.com/ISD535. Tonight's meeting is also being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel following completion of the meeting. If you are speaking or presenting at tonight's meeting, please speak directly into or close to the microphone so that the recording can capture clear audio and the audience present can hear what is being said. The agenda and documents for this meeting are available online at rochesterschools.org/assembly. Present at this meeting are school board members, Superintendent Ken Pickell, a non-voting ex officio member, and Assistant School Board Clerk, Ms. Lori Sam. Ms. Sam, would you please call the roll?
Director Barlow.
Here.
Director Cook.
Here.
Treasurer Garcia.
Here.
Clerk McLaughlin.
Here.
Director Marvin.
Here.
Chair Nathan.
Here.
Vice Chair Workman.
Here.
At this time, we offer the opportunity to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 2.1 is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Move approval. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda has been approved. Our first item tonight is a focus topic, the 2024 Truth in Taxation presentation. This is an information item. Superintendent Pickell.
Thank you, Chair Nathan. Board members, as you are aware, we are required by law to hold this meeting, which actually by law must start at 6 p.m. So thanks to everyone for waiting to that point. It's an opportunity to summarize for our community the financial support that the community will be providing for the school district and the work that all of our amazing educators do for young people over the year ahead. Our Director of Administration, John Carlson, has got COVID, and I would bet is at home watching, pretty miserable, but luckily we have the very capable hands of Andy Krogstad, our Director of Finance, to give us an overview. Andy's been with us for about a year and has been an incredible addition to the team. So thank you very much for doing that, Andy, and then obviously as the Chair will describe after you give us an overview, there will be an opportunity for anyone who wants to comment on the financial matters that are the focus of this hearing for the benefit of the board and the community. So, Andy.
Great, thank you. Chair Nathan, members of the board, and Dr. Pickell. As you said, this is our required discussion and review of our tax levy along with last year's budget results, and we're going to also take a focus and look a little bit at this year's budget as we sit today. And then at the end, of course, public comments, as you mentioned. Our tax cycle is a little bit different than cities and counties in that we are actually levying for our fiscal year 24-25, but they're collected next year. So what we are asking you to approve tonight is based on home values that were assessed this past spring. MDE then runs the calculations to determine what is the maximum levy that we can impose based on those values. And then at this meeting, we will hopefully, or the next meeting, I would say, you would approve that levy recommendation, and then those monies are collected next year for our use in the fiscal year 24-25. So it's a kind of a long cycle to actually generate that money. A little bit of review. You saw these numbers 2 weeks ago when we had the audit review, which we are happy to say was phenomenal. No, I can't take credit for that. We have an amazing team of people behind that. But this is the results as of the end of fiscal year 23, which was June 30th. We've just summarized these by fund, and so you can see how each fund performed based on actual revenues, expenditures, and then ending fund balance. Looking ahead a little bit then, we look at the original budget. This is the budget that was approved by this board in June for this particular fiscal year. We are happy to report that in the general fund, we are still budgeting and expecting a break even in that particular fund, so that is good news. A slight decrease in fund balance for food service, primarily because revenues are holding flat due to the new school lunch program, free lunch program, but of course our prices in terms of our commodities and our staffing costs are going up. And so we are going to see a slight decrease in that fund balance. However, that is a very healthy fund balance, so there's no concerns there. Community service, a slight decrease as well. A little bit of adjustment in the levy for them. And so there's a little bit of adjustment there, but again, very healthy fund balance, nothing to be concerned with. Construction, of course, these are dollars that were part of the referendum several years ago, which are still continuing to be spent. And even though you're showing a negative fund balance, that's okay. We have the monies in the fund to cover those expenses. We're just not putting new money in, of course, as we finish depleting the referendum dollars, the bonded dollars. And then the internal service fund. The internal service fund includes our health insurance fund, our dental insurance fund, our printing services fund, which our district uses, all sites use, and then our workers' comp fund. We are estimating a slight decrease in that fund balance, primarily due to our health insurance costs. So the property tax levy, it provides revenue for those three funds that we've outlined here, the general fund, community ed, and debt service. I won't bore you with the details, but of course, in the general fund, for the general fund, the levy accounts for about 16 to 18% of our revenue overall for any given year, depending on our other revenue sources. So as we calculated our our pay 24, it's about 17% of our anticipated revenues. So it is a major portion, but not the largest portion, of course. Who determines the amount of property tax? Well, the school district, unlike counties and cities, have very little flexibility in our levy. It's primarily established by MDE. MDE will tell us essentially, based on calculations that they perform, and obviously state law, how much money we can levy. And we can choose to levy the maximum, or we can levy something less than the maximum, but we aren't, unlike cities and counties, able to establish a percentage increase that we would like to levy. Instead, we are dictated by MDE. The levy then is made up of three components: our operating referendum, our building bond referendum, and then capital projects. These are the voter-approved items that are part of our levy. So our community has supported the school system and the schools through votes and referendum, and that money is collected through this levy process. Unfortunately, the capital projects referendum at this particular point is not being collected, but it is an option for us in the future, of course. But operating referendum and building bond referendum are in the FY20 or the Pay 24 plan. So what does the levy look like? So you'll see where we are this year, Pay 24. So there's about a $5.2 million increase in the general fund. But that doesn't equate to a 12.4 million or 12.4% increase for any person's personal taxes. It's really the bottom number that we need to account and look at. So community ed and debt service as a whole are actually going to be levying less. These dollars that we're showing you here are the established maximum amounts that MDE permits us to levy, which this board did preliminarily approve maximum levy in September. And so we are bringing that forward and going to be recommending the maximum levy amount based on MDE's, what MDE will permit. And so as a whole, the district will be levying 3.9% more in Pay 24 than it is in Pay 23. So if you're interested in the detail, there's a very complex 39-page report in the board packet. It is very complex. I'm just myself beginning to understand it enough to talk somewhat intelligently about it. But a couple of things that I want to make sure you understand that are increasing. First of all, the voter-approved operating referendum, that's tied to inflation. So that does automatically increase based on a rate that's established in legislation, or it's actually not legislation, it's a inflation, cost of living inflation that's put in there, and again, that's calculated by MDE. As well as our long-term facilities maintenance, and when we refer to that, we refer to it, in this case, as PAYGO, meaning we are going to collect in taxes what we anticipate spending in long-term facilities. That's the PAYGO program, as opposed to actually borrowing money and then paying it back later. And of course, operating capital. That would be things for textbooks, technical supply, or technical equipment, things of that nature. There's also some things that are decreasing. So our debt service, we're paying off principal. So we actually are decreasing how much money we levy that will be going towards debt service, how much money we are levying to go to pay off borrowing for long-term facilities maintenance. That's going down as well. And then OPEB costs. That's going down as well in pay 24. So next I want to just discuss the 3.9% increase and what does it mean for any particular person. Again, it doesn't mean that your taxes for the school district portion of your tax statement is going to go up 3.9% because there are many factors involved. That can be spread across, again, the entire tax base. So as the tax base increases, the amount of money that any one home or homeowner would pay decreases. Our amount stays fixed, and instead the tax base increases. Now, there can also be things that drive up any one person's tax statement, and that could be property taxes, for example. So when your homes or businesses were assessed in the spring, you could have seen increases, and that increase in turn could drive additional property taxes across all of your taxing jurisdictions, including the school district. So many factors involved when you look at it from a personal basis. But here's an example. In this particular instance, that home price a home priced at the $236,000 value, and again, we took that because that's part of our report from PMA that lays out multiple values of homes. We just chose to include this one. If you live in a home that's priced in that $236,000 range, your property taxes will actually decrease. The school portion of your property taxes will actually decrease almost 3% or $22 over the course of a year. On the flip side, as I spoke to this earlier, if the value of your home, a $236,000 home last year, went up by 6% this year to $250,000, you will see that you're now paying 3.6%. So a home that has no value increase will see a decrease in taxes. A home that had a value increase would clearly then have a property tax increase. This just again outlines it again a little bit. Two homes that are equally priced, using this scenario, they pay the same amount. Under a scenario where one increases more than the other, just a slightly different formula, or not formula, but a different way of showing how those same dollars then of $500 get levied differently then based on the home values. We like to show this, and the entire report from PMA is included in the board packet and is available for everyone to review. It's really an entire thorough report that PMA, who is our financial advisor, prepares for us each year for presentation during the levy, where it really outlines everything that goes into the levy, the voter approved, the non-voter approved, different home values, how those dollars are all, how they all interconnect and relate to these particular home values, whether it's a voter approved, a non-voter approved, etc. This is just a screenshot, but what you'll see is this is just comparing a particular home, in this case a $330,000 home, that went up $20,000, does see a slight increase. I did want to spend a minute on this particular diagram because I think this is really interesting. This just breaks down where a single home valued at $350,000 paying $175 in taxes, which portions of the levy that money would go to support. And so you can see how that levy is broken into multiple categories based on how we choose to implement levies, some which are voter approved, some which are board approved. some which are obviously part of the bonding, or excuse me, not bonding, but our building referendum, and then voter-approved operating referendum as well. So many different categories make up that total amount, and we take those dollars then and we divide them appropriately within our accounting system. As we look at where we are as a district in terms of our levy for the homes in our district and where we compare locally to other school districts in our region, you can see Rochester continues to be towards the bottom, only slightly ahead of Cannon Falls and Winona. You can see, though, I mean, that all of this is based on a $330,000 home in each of those taxing jurisdictions. So Rochester continues to be very prudent with its tax levy and making very important decisions about how those dollars are used and how much we determine we can levy, which again, some of that relates to the voter-approved portion. We didn't break that out, but most of those schools have a larger voter-approved operating referendum, which increases, obviously, the portion, increases their overall collection. Now, this is a little bit broader. We're taking into consideration here now 4 other schools. We'll call them peer schools, but 2 of them are a little bit larger, 2 of them are smaller. And you'll see where Rochester fits, again, in comparison. Much of this is related, once again, to voter-approved operating referendum or capital projects referendum that these districts have in place. And you'll see, once again, where Rochester's at the bottom in this particular case, in this peer group. This is the same peer group we used last year, and we're exactly in the same place as we were last year. So at this particular point, what if I would say, what if you're unhappy, or what if you're disappointed with the value of your home in terms of its assessed value? Unfortunately, there's not much you can do right now except you can file with a tax court. But as I mentioned previously, home values are determined in the spring. And so in the spring, homeowners will receive a statement saying, here is your estimated home value, your assessed value. That is your opportunity, and that's the time when you have an opportunity then to dispute that home value. After that, it's just the Minnesota Tax Court. There's very few options available. And that is it. So any questions?
So annually before adoption of the property tax levy, the public must be given a reasonable amount of time to comment and ask questions related to the proposed property tax levy and budget. Tonight's public hearing meets that requirement. Members of the community who have questions or comments on the 2024 property tax levy will be recognized at this time. Please limit your questions and comments to topics related to the 2024 property tax levy. A reminder that Policy 207 governs public hearings, and only those speakers recognized will be allowed to speak. Comments by others are out of order. Individuals who interfere with or interrupt speakers, the school board, or the proceedings may be directed to leave. Personal attacks by anyone addressing the school board are unacceptable. Persistence in such remarks by an individual shall terminate that person's privilege to address the school board. Our assistant board clerk will come into the audience. Please raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment, and when she has recognized you, please come forward to these tables in the front of the room. Be seated and speak into one of the microphones. State your name, your connection to Rochester Public Schools, and direct your question or comment to the board. You will have 3 minutes to speak, and the timer is displayed right here in front of me. So if you're interested in making a comment on the property tax levy, please raise your hand. Do a second call. If you're interested in commenting on the property tax levy, please raise your hand. And a final call, if you're interested in speaking on the property tax levy, please raise your hand. So I'll now close the public hearing. Item 3.3 is announcement of 2023 levy certification date and time. The property tax levy for school district property taxes payable in 2024 will be certified by the school board at its regular meeting scheduled on December 12th, 2023, immediately following this special session. And hearing no other business, this meeting is adjourned at 6:19 p.m.